Okay, now we're going to go over daily logs. These are a requirement for your internship, and so it's very important that we learn how to do them right. In criminal justice, all aspects use some form of daily logs to document everything that you do during your shifts. So it's found in police, probation, parole, corrections, DHS. So what you do is you start a new log when you start your shift every day. You document the activities that you take and the actions you do with the time that they occur. That also includes concerns or any incidents that happen. You would write those in detail and document with the time. And make sure you document when you end your shift. One of the things that's very important is if you don't document something, then it's like it never occurred. So it's very important that if you don't document that you're leaving your workstation for something else and something occurs, you're going to be held responsible. So some of the things that you would want to document out and ins would be breaks, meals, meetings, supply runs, etc. Logs indicate your daily activity. Internally, they are used to monitor staff compliance with policy and procedure. They also verify where you're at a given time. They can be used in internal investigations, not specifically against you, but they might use your logs to see how a certain inmate was acting at a given time. They may be used to monitor resources and time management. So if you are an administrator, you might pull the logs and note that there are some times when nothing's really going on and other times it's really busy. So you want to allocate your staff to those busy times. And finally, logs are used for a variety of things. One could be to monitor vehicle mileage. Why? To one, determine that when you use the company vehicle or the agency vehicle, you're going to and from where you say you're supposed to. But two, also so they know when to do oil changes and rotate tires and vehicle maintenance. We also use logs for external purposes. One, through FOIA, any public document or any document you write can become public, and it could be used to assess your proper handling of the incident. So a lot of times these documents are used in lawsuits, and they can protect you or they can hurt you to show that you were negligent. For example, I had a client that was HIV positive, and he ended up in isolation. He filed a lawsuit stating that he was placed in isolation because of his medical reason of HIV. But when my logs were subpoenaed by the court, they found that this inmate had misbehaved consistently and had originally started out in minimum security, then went to general population, then close custody, and ultimately ended up in isolation. And so once they read the log showing that it wasn't duly for his medical reason, it was because of his behavior, the lawsuit was thrown out. Logs are permanent records, and they can be used to examine past actions, to pass on information to others, such as the next shift. They can help with investigations. They document behavior. They help prepare court cases and ultimately to evaluate activities and performance. So it's important to do a few things with each log. First, you log the time of occurrence, and then any specific actions or appointments that occur. And appointments could be medical, school, doctors, as far as on the outside, if you have a client. You want to include all the names involved. So if your client said that he's going to the doctor because he thinks he sprained his ankle, you would ask him what doctor and then note that. Any actions that you take, you might call ahead to make sure that he has an appointment, and you would document that. Any duties you do, you would document those. Any treatment that's completed and processed, whether it be medical, mental health, it could also be rehabilitative treatment. You have your client that's supposed to go to, let's say, AA, and you would document that he said that he went to AA, and then you would follow up and make sure that he did go to AA. You might call his sponsor just to document. And then any transporting of clients or inmates you would document. Additional information that you should really be careful to make sure that you do. Logs are permanent, and so most places now they have your logs electronically on the computer, so you're typing your answers so everybody can read them. But if they're written, make sure that you not only write clearly, but that you write in pen. Usually it's black or blue. My agency that I work for required only black. Each entry should be based on fact, not your opinion. So if you have somebody that is acting differently, you don't write down Joe Smith is acting crazy. You're going to describe the behavior and write Joe Smith is pacing back and forth, talking to himself, and making animal sounds. Then based on that, you could make an inference that you think that he needs to see medical or the psychologist, but you're basing it on fact. When you log, if it's handwritten, write clearly and neatly as possible. Use professional language. Make sure you have the time and the date. You write in chronological order, which means you write from the beginning of the incident to the end, or you write from the beginning, the logs, the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Do not use abbreviations. See, do not. Formal writing does not have contractions as well. Don't use initials for certain things unless they're well-known initials. And don't use shorthand, because if they go to court, you're going to A, have to remember what they stand for, but B, everybody that's involved must be able to understand what you're saying. And then make sure that you use the pronoun I and not the words this officer. If you make a mistake, you don't scribble it out or erase it or use whiteout, because remember, these are permanent legal documents. So instead, you would put a line through your mistake and then initial the near correction. So it's hard to see on this PowerPoint, but I used the wrong there, and then because it's on the computer, I put a line through it, and then I wrote the correct, and at the end I put my initials. Finally, you don't log information that's coming from a previous shift. So in policing and corrections, you have roll call, and that's really to inform you what went on. Let that stay with the shift beforehand. You do log in your equipment that you received, though. And if there's any important information, highlight it or write it in capital letters. For example, nurse said to give inmate Jones and inmate number 11234 medication in drawer at 10 p.m. So you capitalize the medication in drawer so the next shift knows where it's at. You are also responsible for spelling, punctuation, grammar, sentence structure. And that is just part of being professional. So let's look at some examples of some good daily logs from past students. So on this one, we can see that this young lady arrived and wrote down her time when she started on duty. You see at 8:05, I arrived in front control where I met with Sergeant Smith. We spoke about ways to be aware of inmate behavior and what it means when they act a certain way. And then, as you can see, every time she did something new, she then listed the time. So here we see at, let's say, 10:45. Officer Chapman took trustees to kitchen to prepare lunch for the inmates. Officer Chapman and I remained to back control where I continued to observe the inmates watching TV. So she is documenting specifically everything that's going on in her day. Here's another one. This one's a handwritten one. It's a little old. This person did his internship at a Walmart out in Phoenix, Arizona. And so we see 10 to 10:15, he was in the back room, officer and front end, something for, or searching for a radio to use. And he tells you all throughout the day of what he was doing. One thing that he doesn't include that should have been included was like when he was writing reports or incidents were occurring because he was out on the floor. Here's another one that was done that you can see that she checked in at the main control and was on standby at 11:55, which is always important to arrive early for your internship. 12 o'clock, then she's telling what she was doing and where she was throughout the day. Now, some of these good logs had second pages, but I want you to note how much detail that they are in. Here's some example of bad logs. This person decided they didn't want to waste paper. So this is for their entire week. So 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This person wrote, filed for Jennifer, supervised parenting time, assisted FC worker Robin with finding placement for child whose biological family was threatening foster family. That was Wednesday. So we'd have no idea what time any of these things went on, what she was doing for her day. And she did this over and over again for her whole week. And so if something occurs, we have no idea what she was doing. Here's another bad log. This is even more concise. Look at this, 9 to 5, went on home visit. Well, where did you go? What time did you leave? Did you stop for lunch? Did you talk to somebody? All those details have to be in. Remember, every day should have its own log. And this person logged it all on one piece of paper. Finally, this person wrote their log all in one paragraph. So you want to break out the times of everything that you're doing. So that completes this video on daily logs. And this is something that you really have to make sure you talk to whoever's supervising you. Most people today are requiring that they be typewritten, but you have to make sure that that's what your advisor wants.